Well, it's that time again, that time when we stroll into our local election center, try and figure out why in the world we're voting for who we're voting for. More importantly, the reasons why we're voting for who we're voting for. Mm-hmm. I'm joined today by Greg and Ken, and I'm Chris, and this is Three Pastors Walk Into a Voting Booth. I mean, it's really a bar, but...
With our... Scoot over, can you? Give me a little room over here.
It's a little tight in here.
Ow! Stop it!
Get your elbow out of my side, Greg.
Move over.
Good grief.
What's the matter with you people?
This is crazy. Whose idea was this? It's Ken's idea, obviously.
It's always Ken's idea.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it, Ken. We do.
Skeet go with a capital S.
Yes. Yes.
I really do. I mean, let's take a moment to give you some accolades. All right, you put this together.
Are they fresh?
They are fresh.
What do they taste like?
Well, some are spearmint.
Skittles.
But they chocolate covered Skittles.
No, just Skittles.
Dark
Chocolate covered Skittles.
Give them to Chris.
Who thought of that apostasy?
I don't know. Maybe freeze dried.
Ooh.
You ever had that? Yes, you have.
I have had freeze-dried Skittles.
Skittles, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, they're pretty good. All right. Well, the good news is that in spite of everything going on everywhere else in the world, and all the moral decline, and all of the wars and rumors of wars, and famine and disease and pestilence,
Sounds like biblical proportions.
in spite of all of that, we have a disclaimer. I know, right? Yeah. Let that soak in for a minute.
You know, we had Rod read that the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Did well.
Did he?
Great. Yeah, he did a fine
Welcome
job.
back, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
My
the heck you
goodness,
been?
we were adrift here for weeks.
Yeah. I noticed that they were quite a bit shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Does that tell you anything?
It tells me that you guys just don't have a lot to say, obviously.
Verboseness comes to mind.
It's a pilot test. We're going to see.
Yeah,
what that
right.
is.
Well, you know, it's funny. When I'm out looking for a podcast, I'm looking for a 30-minute one.
Really? Those
Yeah.
exist?
Yeah, they do.
I don't listen to a podcast that's under an hour.
See, it's like,
I don't even know of any.
I need to get new earbuds or something so I can be moving.
Probably
and-
what you do is you find excerpts of podcasts.
Yeah.
That's probably what happens.
You know, let somebody else do the work.
Which is something that we probably should look into doing at some point, is doing excerpts of podcasts.
Mm-hmm. We could do a whole podcast on excerpts from podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a greatest hits show.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I don't know.
There's an AI
don't know.
for that. Just
There
point an
actually
AI
is.
at
There,
it.
I saw it the other day. There is an AI program out there that you can upload your video to, and it will go through and it will select out 5-minute clips out of your video, and it will create the thumbnail, and create the title all at the same time. That's pretty cool, because that's a lot of work, man.
You have to give it some boundaries.
Yeah, anything that doesn't have Greg in it.
That'd work.
Yeah.
Highlights of the day.
Clip out all of the ums.
Yeah, there's probably 10 minutes of ums.
When I was in Toastmasters, a guy, after one of my talks, called me the Wizard of Oz.
That's funny.
It was.
Yeah.
It was very,
Hey, Ken,
very demeaning.
hit us with a disclaimer.
We really need it this episode.
Yes, we do.
We do. So, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the respective speakers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, policies, or doctrines of Athol Baptist Church and its members.
Hey, there you go.
Any
so
questions?
we can say whatever we want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not
Hobbs,
really
squabble,
anybody's
nabla.
opinions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the questions that we get asked often is, who are you voting for when elections come along? And a lot of times, we'll have people on and interview them, before election time. Just so happens that there's not really a whole lot locally going on with our elections this time around. It's mostly presidential and then sheriff, I think, and then a couple of ballot initiatives. But that being said, I'm never been a big fan of promoting like a certain candidate, and nor do I think that that's really how we should kind of gauge the way that we view our politics. And so, we want to kind of share not necessarily who we're voting for, but the things that we look for in a candidate. And that kind of is the way that you should really be guided to vote for anybody. I mean, it shouldn't really be about a personality. It should be about, what does this person support? What is this person's, what's their platform, more or less,
And their values.
and how
But it's hard to garner from the rhetoric of a campaign what their values are. They can say it, but without knowing that person.
Well, yeah,
It's very
particularly since
difficult.
most of them just lie about it anyways.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, let's take the shroud down. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that should be an indicator there. If you have a candidate that has told you that they're going to do something and they just never bothered, maybe you probably shouldn't vote for them again. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Just a thought, for those out there that are looking in certain directions to vote.
Yeah. Well, we should be able to give, just like give a good reason for the hope that is within you. Give a good reason why you're going to vote a certain way, but you should be able to do that with extracting their name and all of your personal opinion and everything about their personality out of it.
Yeah.
I would vote for them because of this thing or this policy or this stance or this value or this result from them in the past, etc.
Right.
And somebody should be able to miss the name and be able to agree with you, at least in part, on that principle.
Yeah.
Take all of the personality and the personalization out of it, because that's what counts. That's what we're voting for. It's not a popularity contest. This isn't junior high. There's a lot at stake.
Well, and in keeping with that, what we did was as a pastoral staff, we kind of selected kind of 6 of the things that are hot button issues in the platforms that the candidates in the presidential running race are kind of running on. And they're not in any particular order. It's just kind of the order that they ended up on the document. But we are going to publish an affirmation of our values for the 2024 election here pretty soon. It's a thing that we've kind of been working on, getting the edits done on it, making sure that it's done properly. But we kind of wanted to go through it on here because it's one thing to read something, but then it's quite another to hear someone kind of make commentary on it. So that's kind of what we want to do here today. So hopefully you'll be able to use some of these ideas in formulating who you're going to vote for. I think
These would be great for parents.
Yeah, for sure. And by the end of it, it should be pretty clear to you, like, who you should be voting for. You don't need to say a specific person, because if you're voting based on your moral guidelines, then just really becomes pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Anyways, the first one has to do with immigration, which is like the number one issue. I think it's going to be one of the hottest debate topics come Tuesday, which this Tuesday, the 9th or the 10th. I can't remember. I think it's going to be the 10th. I think today's the 9th. Anyways,
Yes.
yeah. So that will be the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. So you should pay attention to that. Should be some information there. But I think immigration is going to be pretty high on the list of stuff that they talk about. I don't know how Kamala could escape it.
Yeah,
really.
one of the things, listening to the news coming in, commentary from a couple of guys, it really oftentimes will boil down to the people running the show, so to speak, and the questions they ask.
Yeah.
But at the same time, both candidates will have the skill and ability to divert that to their own devices. But I don't know if Kamala's got any.
I don't know about Kamala, but I know that President Trump is really good at just saying what he wants.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Did they settle the muted mics issue?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. They
one
were
side
supposed
was-
to use the same rules that they used on NBC, I thought, but I don't know.
Well, if you don't mute him, it's not worth watching.
It's gonna be a cap.
It's
It's gonna be a dog fight.
Yeah, it's just going to be ugly.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be bad either way.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a really contentious
Wouldn't it be
election
nice
cycle.
if Mr. Trump were to not retaliate when he is attacked? Because he will be attacked. And to just find a way to answer softly and give a valid, cordial explanation of what he's going to do. I'm sorry. Did I just go into
No, it just,
Wonderland there?
this reminded me of a scene from the movie Reagan we just saw.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, was that good?
I heard it was really good.
It was good. But
Yeah.
there's a scene where Reagan does exactly that. They criticize him for being old, and he just kind of, well, I will abstain. Or, I'm paraphrasing here. I'll resist the urge to point out my candidate's relative youth and lack of experience. Just use your wit
Just Ronald
to
Reagan.
turn it right on him.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and he has been pretty. I mean, that's kind of been one of his things. But actually, in his debate with Joe Biden, I mean, I thought that he did pretty good at keeping his temperament and holding his tongue and only speaking when it was absolutely necessary. And he put in what he needed to put in at just the right time. I mean, that phrase will go down in history. It's when Joe Biden got done talking and then he goes, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't think he knows what he's talking about. It's like, that's going to be like one of the...
He will be able to use that again tomorrow night, I am
Probably. So anyways, on immigration, this is what will be on the affirmation of values. We believe that all life, particularly human life, is of immense value to God. God is not willing that any person should perish, and he is dedicated to setting free those that are captive to sin. We also believe that the United States of America offers the best chance in the world for individuals to find freedom to live out free and fulfilling lives that are productive and help to build our nation. Citizenship for those that immigrate is an essential part of offering that freedom to anyone who would come. And it is a well-established principle that America is a nation of immigrants. However, this dream cannot be realized for Americans or for those who would immigrate to America if our nation does not have secure, sovereign borders that are protected by our federal government. So understanding that immigration is important and a fair and legal pathway to citizenship is essential, we support policies and candidates that promote secure borders.
Amen.
Yeah, it's a fiasco, man. That whole thing is an absolute nightmare. And when you look at some of the illegal immigration that is happening in some of these cities where it has become prevalent, it's really quite terrifying. Like the whole thing in Aurora, Colorado is just, it's just shocking that we have a city in the United States of America that is allowing these things to happen. I mean, where is the sheriff? Where is the mayor? Where is the city council? You know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that, you know, you have a city that's making national headlines for stuff that's going on over there with Venezuelan gangs, and they're not attempting to do anything about it. They're just sidestepping it and trying to pretend like nothing's happening.
And it's just one of several cities. I mean, 2 years ago, I don't know if it's still there, but in Michigan, there was a city that was under Sharia law. And I, you know, when I heard that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Yeah.
But when we have governments that are infiltrated by socialists and people on the left that want to see that, it becomes a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
And how it's being done.
Yeah.
Slow but sure.
Yeah, and it seems to be that the vast majority of illegal immigrants that are coming into not particularly the United States of America, but particularly into Europe, they seem to be from North Africa, and they seem to be Islamic. They seem to be even worse than just Islamic. They seem to be almost radical Islamic.
Yes.
And you know, I think that people are waking up to this immigration idea because they're seeing some of the stuff coming over from Europe and some of the crime and some of the just nonsense that's happening over in Europe. I was watching a video the other day, and this Islamic guy stopped a British couple in the street with their car and started yelling at them for eating pork. I mean, it's like, dude, this is our country, and we're doing what we want to do. If you want that, you need to go somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Yep. But that's the kind of thing, right? If you look at how they approach their laws, they will not be happy until they have Sharia law. That's all that they want. They want Sharia law, and they will force it upon you if they can by fiat of force. They'll just make you take it. And so, you know, Europe, Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, these countries are in serious trouble. Like, they're getting invaded from the inside out, and it just seems like their leaders it doesn't even register to them that there's a problem. It's gotten so bad in Ireland that McGregor has decided that he's going to run for president. You know, the MMA fighter? Because people are just desperate for someone to come along and say, nope, we're removing all these people from our country.
Time to kick some patootie here.
Yeah. You know, that's his platform.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to kick all these guys out.
I know a guy here in the United States. That's his platform.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, I think people have gotten to the point where they see the problem, and it is serious. Like, I was watching a thing just the other day where this lady, this dear black lady, was yelling at her city council because they were accusing all of the people, the black folks in that community, of being racist and hateful towards immigrants. And she's like, are you kidding me? It's like, your guys are giving these guys all this cash. You're giving them all this money. You're giving them the ability to stay in people's houses for free. They can just invade your home and live there as a squatter, and you can't do anything about it. And people are furious. They're furious.
Gee.
It's a shocker, isn't it?
It makes you wonder where the city council members, because it's not the city council, it's people, where they go after these council meetings. Where do they live? How do they live? Do they have jobs beyond the city council?
Oh yeah, they're disconnected from the reality of their constituency. That's for sure.
Saying. Yeah, it's like, weird
Yeah.
that they would even have that type of a rhetoric.
Yeah. So, needless to say, when we start looking for someone to vote for, one of my primary objectives is looking for someone who's going to secure our borders, because I like what Vivek Ramaswamy said. Ramaswazi? Sway? I don't know.
That guy.
Vivek. Let's go with Vivek.
I like what Vivek said. He said that a country without a secure border is a country without borders.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, if you can't secure your borders, you don't have any sovereignty. And so, yeah, I appreciate leaders that are willing to take a stand and say, no, we're no longer going to allow this. You should check out what Poland does.
To illegal immigrants?
Poland, they don't play games,
No
man.
tolerance over there.
No, they got barbed wire around on their border, and they have a whole. There's this video there. A lot of these immigrants are trying to cross and go across the barbed wire, and the Polish military is there, and they're spraying them all with bear spray. They're just like,
Wow.
it's like, wow. Hungary is the same way. There's like they're playing no games. And also, did you this just came out yesterday or the day before yesterday? The EU is suing Poland to the tune of like 200 million euros because they're not accepting the EU's immigration laws, and they're saying no illegal immigrants at all.
Well, if the United
Particularly Islamic, they pick them out. They're like, we don't want any Muslims.
It's like a lot of commentary lately about the state of America. If America goes down, we hear this all the time. We're the last bastion of hope. But maybe when we're gone, and we will be gone someday, if the Lord tarries, maybe somebody like Poland is going to step up and be the freedom fighters for the world.
Maybe.
I mean, that's an interesting thought.
They seem to be like, but it's global at this point. Like there was a big report that came out here recently where it was talking about how the far right wing party in Germany, for the first time, has the ability to take power in Germany for the first time since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well,
that's how
big.
fed up people are.
Yeah.
That's a huge shift.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Speaking of reports, there was a report out just earlier this month, a few weeks ago, by the New York Post that says that migrants reportedly make up roughly 75% of arrests in Midtown Manhattan and a large bulk of other New York City neighborhoods.
Yes, I read that.
Illegal migrants and other foreign nationals living in shelters are flooding New York City's criminal justice system, according to law enforcement sources who spoke anonymously with the Post. These migrants are being arrested for robbery, assault, domestic violence, and other crimes across the city.
Yep. That doesn't shock me. Yeah. I'm just curious to see how, if one of the candidates wins, obviously Trump is the only one that's supporting any kind of border security. Mm-hmm. Let me rephrase that. He was. Now suddenly Kamala has the border wall in her,
We're gonna build it.
ads. But in any case, I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out if that happens, how he's going to start removing these. I mean, how would you do that? You would have to enlist the help of the National Guard, I would think.
Oh,
I don't think that
absolutely.
there's any other way that you could do
Armed
it.
forces. I mean,
Well,
everybody's going to.
You can't deploy the armed forces on United
Unless
States
it's-
soil. It'd have to be the National Guard. But, yeah, I mean, you could deploy the National Guard.
Well, if he declares war on immigrants.
I don't think that Posse Comitatus gives you the ability to deploy
that?
troops on United States soil, period.
If we're attacked.
If we're attacked, yeah.
And
I
that's what
guess.
I'm saying. If you declare war on the immigrants,
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
then,
Okay.
then the armed forces could get involved in that situation. But yeah, I
That would be really...
That's a slippery slope.
it's
man.
taken years for millions of them to come in. It'll take years to get them out of here.
I don't know. You get enough National Guard members in New York and start just rounding them up and grabbing them by the collar and throwing them into
A bus.
cattle trucks.
The thing is where do you take them? You take them back to Mexico.
You take them
where
back
they
to
came
Mexico
in,
and you drop them off.
but the majority of them aren't even Mexicans.
No,
I don't
where
care.
They came in. That's Mexico's problem.
This is
then.
where you entered. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Enjoy Mexico.
Political relations
better
with
work
Mexico
a treaty with
have
Mexico
dropped
there, Donnie.
Hey, you know what? Here's the thing, right? If you allowed that to happen, and you welcomed it, and you allowed them to go through your side of the border without any problems, because you didn't want to have to deal with it, and they've released prisoners into our community.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have any problems. I told Kim the other day, I mean, if it were me, I would use the National Guard to round them up, and then if I couldn't get them through the border, I'd load them up on C-130s and hook them up with a parachute and parachute them into Mexico City.
Yeah. And get your parachutes from surplus stores.
I might even splurge to allow them to be parachuted into their country of origin if it's in South America, just as a courtesy, you know.
So
Oh, where you?
such a
You're from
kinder,
Guatemala.
gentler.
Yeah, you're from Guatemala. Okay, here's your Guatemala parachute.
You're up in 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're in C-130 50 down that way.
Yeah.
Carry on. Until you get over Guatemala and you're like, go, 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 go. I mean, I'm joking, kind of.
Well, that's it. I'm sitting here smiling thinking, yeah, that
Hey,
would work.
You know, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, we'd have the money that we would save supporting them would certainly pay for the fuel and the time for those C-130s.
Yeah, yeah. So this next one is really interesting. Moving on, it's about fossil fuels and the United States of America. So we believe that God has blessed the United States of America with an abundance of natural resources, and that among those resources are quantities of fossil fuels within our sovereign borders. We should be taking advantage of these natural resources in responsible ways that benefit all Americans. We also believe that the inflation of fuel prices for the purpose of trying to force individuals to switch to electric vehicles is morally wrong, and that Americans as sovereign citizens of the various states should have the right to choose between the types of vehicles that they drive. So we support policies and candidates that promote sensible and responsible use of our gas, oil, and coal resources, and that are against policies that would force Americans to purchase certain types of vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one of the interesting things that I've heard recently is the desire to open up regulation, because apparently Wyoming does this. They deregulate their oil reserves, and then the profits that they receive from the oil reserves, they put into a public investment. A divestiture, or what did they? I can't remember exactly what they called it. But anyways, the people of Wyoming get a check from the profits of the oil, and so that's kind of what the Republican Party was talking about. Was they were talking about, yeah, we need to deregulate oil, deregulate coal, deregulate gas, and then create a wealth fund that we can then give back to the American people.
That's kind of what Alaska does, right? With the pipeline.
Yep, Alaska
fund.
does that too. Alaska, Wyoming, there was a couple other states that do that as well.
Do you think most people remember? I think it was day one that Joe shut down the pipeline.
Oh yeah, that was executive order. That was like one of the first executive
Very
orders.
first thing. Like I said, like first day in office.
Yep.
This is what he did.
Yep.
Eliminated thousands of jobs, and changed the direction of our sovereignty.
Well, all because of climate change, which there is a big push right now. There are a lot of scientists who are coming out now that are saying that CO2 emissions as a source of climate change is a complete fabrication. Like they're writing papers about this now. That there was a guy who wrote a paper that he had made a comment that there was a time in our recent history where the CO2 was 1,400% higher than it is now. And it was just cold. This would have been during an ice age or whatever, if you believe in such kind of time frames. But I think it's interesting that you got a lot of scientists now that are coming forward and they're saying, look, there's nothing to this.
Yeah.
Like all this trouble that we're going through to save the environment
Cyclical.
from these evil fossil fuels. You know, it's like it's just not even an issue.
Well, and if you can't get global cooperation, you're just fighting
Yeah, it's pointless.
something that'll never take off.
Yeah, it's not like China's gonna.
I mean, there are some of those who've done studies and said even if the United States did all of these things and met all these goals, it would only affect 15% or something of
Yeah,
the
of
total
world's
output.
Yeah.
and this
get-
idea that the United States is going to lead the way and everybody's going to follow is so hilarious.
Like why?
Not
Yeah.
no more.
It's like China's not going to follow us just because we do
Just
good
because.
things.
Yeah, they're not gonna.
It's like, what kind of fantasy world do you live in?
You can feel good about yourself if you follow us. Or India, man,
Yeah, India
Yeah.
is they're number 2 now, aren't they?
I believe so.
Behind China, second most
Wow. I
I
population.
think Brazil's right up there in the top 5. I mean, they've really industrialized a lot in the last generation or so.
Yeah. Well, America just has tons and tons and tons and tons of fossil fuels
Yes.
that we're not even tapping into because of regulations. And if we were to release that and the full might of the United States capitalism was to be unleashed on that, good grief,
Stand back.
we would see a time of prosperity that I'm not sure that we could even imagine it. Really.
Yeah. Go back to the 50s, after the war. Prosperity
Maybe
and
similar to
peace.
Need to find
Yeah,
a
the
better
Cold War, but
a better motivator for science and industry to achieve those kinds of efficiencies in use of fossil fuels and clean environment than fear.
that. Yeah.
Like when Kennedy inspired the nation and a whole generation to land on the moon, it was a positive
Yeah.
affirmation. That was a goal all the Americans could get behind. And just the whole thing with fear is just
It's
just
like
a
we're gonna
non-motivator.
all of
we're gonna
America-
fine you if you don't do it. It's
all
like,
of America could get behind. Wouldn't that be nice to
Yeah.
have something like that?
well, we're
is it?
going to do the best we can to burn this fuel the best that we can, so that we have the best future for our kids that we possibly can have. And if you choose to do that, we're going to give you beneficial tax status.
Nice
what's wrong with
try.
that?
That sounds good. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
But you're asking people to change up what they've been taught, what they've been coerced into believing over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, well, and particularly if you're on the left, you have been told that we need to tax these organizations so that we can fund all of our projects that we have and fund helping people and fund ending poverty and fund all that. Even though none of that's actually happening. I mean, what have we been under Democratic rule for? 12 of the last 16 years, and we still have poverty, and it's increasing. We have increased inflation. We have increased homelessness. We have increased crime. I mean, nothing has gotten better. And so, I would say wake up, and just look. I mean, think about what life was like 16 years ago and what it's like today, and ask yourself, are we better now than we were 16 years ago? You don't really have to go back that far. You can just go back 4 years and say, were we better off 4 years ago than we are today? And the answer to that question is obviously yes. We were way better off, and now
4
it's
years
just,
ago.
oh man, it's just a nightmare now. But the next one, I think, is probably where we're going to get a lot of that traction, because you're talking about taxing, or having, beneficial taxes for corporations. That I think even Trump was talking about having beneficial tax statuses for companies that move their manufacturing to the United States. And if you don't move your manufacturing to the United States, you're going to get the highest tax rates, and you're going to get tariffs on your goods coming into the United States. It's like, hey, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to try and ship it off to get cheaper labor, then you're going to pay somehow.
I shouldn't quote statistics that I don't know where they came from, but I did read this, and I can't remember the country, but one country has put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, Chinese-made electric vehicles, some European country, I think. But I was like, 100%?
Yeah.
Dude, they don't want them. They don't want them.
Yeah, I know that'll be a big thing that happens if Trump should take office. Is there will be tariffs on China and tariffs on a lot of these foreign countries. We'll stop funding the UN as much as we are now. You know, I was listening to a report the other day where this guy was making commentary. If a Trump administration were to take office, the UN is in serious trouble of collapsing.
Yeah, financially.
Yeah, because nobody else funds it. The United States is the only country that really funds it. You know, they all kind of contribute a little bit, but if the United States was to pull out, they'd be in serious trouble. You know, it's like, well,
bummer.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's got to chip in. If you're not going to chip in, there ain't no point in us doing it all. All right, so number 3. We believe that one of the things that Scripture teaches is the wise use of finances and responsible stewardship. It is important to be good stewards of what God has prospered us with. Every believer that is a member of a local church should expect that the finances of their church are being managed properly and with good stewardship practices. It is painfully apparent that the federal government does not share our values regarding this. Considering the rampant spending of money that the American people simply do not have, we know that there are a lot of arguments regarding economic policies, but we believe as a rule that all people should live within their means, including government agencies. So we support candidates and policies that promote sound fiscal responsibility and who desire to reduce our out-of-control spending.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, that's the biggest one, man, because that's one of the things. Who was it that was talking? I think I was listening to Charlie Kirk, and he was talking about some communist guy, I want to say back in the 60s, and he wrote a paper on the 3 things that you would do to destroy the United States of America. And one of them was to print money to create inflation.
Yep.
Is one of the things that he would do.
And it's out of control.
That's what they do
right now. Yeah.
I mean, what was it just here recently? Biden's wanting to print like $60 billion more to send to Ukraine. When does it end?
Yeah. I mean,
Now, when
we've
did it-
become so desensitized to the T in trillion of our trillions of dollars debt. Now it's something like 37 or 44 trillion dollar national debt. And I remember back, I think it was when Trump first came into office, I believe, we were talking like 2-3 trillion. And now we hear 37 trillion, and it's just like well, whatever.
What happened?
Yeah.
It might as well be
An infinite
X.
number.
Yeah, it might as well just be all the money in the universe.
Yeah.
Because I mean, how do you pay back that much money? I mean,
Our
it just
percentage of GDP just
You
keeps
don't.
skyrocketing, and it's unsustainable. It can't go on forever.
There have been people that have, taken a pencil to this and gone, if this was years ago, if we went to a flat tax, we could eliminate the national debt in, I think it was like 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
But that was what you're saying is back when it was maybe 3 trillion, which seemed astronomical once we hit the T, as you say.
I actually thought about that too, about the whole idea of a flat tax, but I would say a majority of America could not afford a flat tax.
True.
Yeah, there'd be a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, there was a time in my life where when I had 2 kids at home and I was trying to put groceries on the table, if you had told me that I had to pay 10% flat tax or 5% flat tax on my income, I would not have been able to pay it. You would have had to have sent me a bill, and I would have had to have made payments on it for the whole year until my next tax bill came in, because there's just no way I could have afforded it.
And that, some of us live that way
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Well, inflation keeps going up. It's the other
Yeah.
tax.
Well, then the answer is to just continue to tax people. But, you'll hear them say things like, well, we don't want to tax the middle class. We want to tax the wealthy. But the problem is you are taxing the middle class when you're just printing money every day and you're creating inflation. That's an involuntary tax
Right.
that nobody asked for, that nobody voted for. It truly is taxation without representation, because it's not even been voted on. It's just money that we printed that people now have to pay the price for at the grocery store, because we don't have that money.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, bringing this home personally, I was thinking the other day, we don't have. Did we ever have a $500 bill? I know we had a $1,000 bill.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've never seen that kind of bill.
But you remember $100 was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Now that's like carrying around a 20.
Yeah, that's dinner out.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, inflation has created that, and I just kind of go, my gosh, we don't have bigger bills than 100.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to dish out several of those when you take the family, the whole family to dinner. And that just has become norm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Man, it would be nice if we could just get that under control and just get a president in there that would be able to say, look, guys, I appreciate that Ukraine is struggling, but imagine, over the course of the last 2 years, how many billions of dollars have we sent to Ukraine? I mean, it's in the hundreds.
Well, we passed. Didn't I hear it here somewhere? We passed what we spent on Vietnam.
Yeah,
That doesn't surprise me.
not at all.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if we surpassed the Iraq-Afghanistan conflict yet. Maybe not,
Yeah.
but it's getting up there.
we're not
Israel-
even in it.
Right.
Israel and Palestine. I mean, we support a lot of wars around the world.
I mean, probably not that one as much as Ukraine, but I mean, if you just took the money that we have spent in the last 2 years on Ukraine, what kind of issues could we have solved in the United States of America with that money instead? That's what I don't understand. It's like you hear one party talking about we need to end poverty, we need to end homelessness, we need to end, all the, child abandonment, we need to end all these things. Well, yeah, probably $200 billion would have gone a long way to all those things instead of sending it over to Ukraine for BlackRock to enjoy.
Although with our current administration, I would suspect that the majority of that money, if we were to have it back, would go to our immigrants. Sorry, I
probably
just,
would.
I just think that is one of the biggest issues here as far as inflation.
Well, yeah.
We're supporting 1 million of those people in a fashion that, and a lot of people argue, we treat them better than we do our veterans. I agree with that. We treat them better than we do the poverty-stricken in our country.
We treat them better than our own poor.
Yeah.
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 That's sick.
I mean, just look at California, approving them for $100,000, $120,000 loans just because they are immigrants.
Poor people.
It's like, why? It just doesn't make any
That's the
sense.
question.
It's like everybody needs the American dream. Well, how about start with Americans? Americans would like the American dream too.
Yeah.
That would be nice instead of just giving it to people who just come over the border without any kind of law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's upsetting.
So I was off a little bit. Looks like, according to this article, we've spent a little bit more so far in the Russian-Ukraine war than we did in Afghanistan for 10 years. We're at about half the cost of the Vietnam War and about a third the cost of the Korean War.
All money that we don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what is it like? Is our actual, how much of our budget is eaten up with just interest on our $37 trillion?
Yeah, we can't pay the interest annually. That's part of the scary thing.
I'm not absolutely sure what the numbers are, but I mean, it just,
They're hard to fathom.
and that people just continue to support that. I mean, these are people who are all about compassion and all about, care and all about concern and yada, yada, yada. And it just continues to just be more and more of the same. It's like, give our money away to foreign countries, spend it on people that aren't citizens, And meanwhile, our people starve to death. And they don't seem to notice that. I don't understand it.
Yeah. It's still true today. There is no free lunch.
Mm-mm.
Everything costs you
That's right.
Somehow.
somewhere.
Yep,
somewhere.
that's for sure. We need to turn that heater off again.
Is it on again?
Yeah.
I'll get it.
It's that thing. Who turned it on?
I turned it down. If it says 80, we got a problem with our thermostat.
Well, I mean, it's summertime. Who would turn it on?
Do we want to on air blame somebody?
Yes.
Okay, well,
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was your wife.
okay, yeah, she's not even in town. Let's blame it on her.
Hey, Triana.
Classic.
If you hear this, it's your fault.
Classical Conversations had it. It's cold in here on Friday mornings, apparently. And they had it turned up to 76, I think, up here. And then didn't turn it down when they left.
Oh, my Lord. I'm cooking.
But
in
we
here.
still love you guys. We still want you here.
Well, yeah. Just don't touch the thermostat.
Yeah, leave them alone. We don't want to put locks on them.
It's like the dad in every house. Don't touch the thermostat.
You know, when we first moved in here, we had locks, little plastic covers and locks over the thermostats here.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Keep people from getting into that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, let's get a handle on this money situation. It's crazy. That's another thing that energy investment would help in, like investing in fossil fuels and opening up that revenue stream. Man, it could really right the ship economically because there's a lot of money there. It'd be nice. Number 4. As previously stated, we believe that all human life is of immeasurable worth to God, who has created all life. Our country has made great strides in recent history to curb the tide of homicide being perpetuated against the unborn of our nation. This is a highly nuanced position when dealing with very small percentages of individuals that fall into categories such as rape, incest, and life-threatening pregnancies. We believe that murdering unborn children is a reprehensible act in the name of convenience, desire, or financial circumstances. So we support candidates and policies that are intrinsically pro-life in relation to the abortion issue. And I think that people need to really look into this because Trump is really kind of a centrist on this idea. You know, people accuse him of being like far right, but on abortion, he's pretty much a centrist on this. Like he is opposed to just rampant abortion, but he is not opposed to abortion in the case of, you know, life, rape, incest, you know, that type of thing. Those are kind of the big arguments when it comes to abortion. But in reality, you know, those things only constitute, you know, like 5% of abortions. The rest of them are really basically convenience based.
Right.
And so, you know, it's like when you're looking at a candidate, you want to make sure as a believer that you are looking at the candidate that is as closely aligned to the morality prescribed by the Bible as you possibly can.
And the only way that you can have a candidate that aligns 100% with your beliefs and ideals is if you run for office yourself.
That's probably true. That's probably true. That's funny. I haven't heard that before. That's funny, though. It is true. Yeah.
Well, he's in favor of it being a state's issue too, right?
I think
Yes.
that's the main thing.
That's a really reasonable position.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. I mean, it's not clearly lined out in the Constitution, except for that the Democrats want to claim that it's a human rights issue, and that it's constitutional based on your equal rights. However, you know, that's a big stretch for the Bill of Rights. And so I think that he's absolutely right on that issue, that it's a state's issue. And you see, I'll take that. I'm such a big proponent of states issues that you see these Republican talking points right now where they're saying, are you in favor of the Supreme Court mandating that you must be a legal citizen of the United States in order to vote, which seems like a great idea, except that voting is given to the states to monitor.
Yeah.
That's a state's issue. It's got nothing to do with the federal government because of the Electoral College. And so, the best way to approach voting is to just let the states work it out. That's what they need to do. And like with Idaho, it's like we have to present a photo ID when we go to vote.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the big deal? And that's just the way that it needs to be. You got states like California, if they're wanting to give away their voting rights to people who aren't even citizens, then perhaps you have some citizens in the in California that bring lawsuits against the government for violating their rights, and let the people sort that out, which is what needs to happen. It's like we are sovereign states for a reason, and we need to remember that. It's one thing that
Amen.
the Democratic Party would like for us to forget is that we're a nation of sovereign states, and we need to definitely remember that we are a nation of sovereign states. Let's see, where were we at?
Just finished
Number
4.
Number 5. We believe that among the rights guaranteed the United States citizen, one of the most important is the Second Amendment regarding the right to bear arms. A citizenry that is unarmed has no hope of retaining the rights given to them by God if a tyrannical government were to remove this one single bedrock right. So we support candidates and policies that protect the Second Amendment.
Right.
And clearly, Kamala was just talking last week about a gun buyback program, quote unquote, for assault-style rifles, which you can't even buy assault rifles, which I don't that doesn't even make any sense to me. But anyway, she wants to ban and do buyback programs for the AR rifle, basically is what that boils down to.
Yeah.
It's just
I thought this was
politicking.
about short sleeve shirts.
Hmm?
Bear arms.
Hmm.
I'd start.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. That's
That's
that's not even
we
a
were
good,
getting serious.
that's
there.
not
I
even
just
a good
wanted
dad
to-
joke.
I liked it.
It's a grandpa joke.
Yeah, that's like
Oh, I got.
that's so bad it's a grandpa joke.
My
yeah.
kids sent me a video of a new T-shirt. Gun paw,
Gun
like
paw.
like a regular grandpa, but he owns guns.
Your kids need to get out more.
Yeah. I think it was a little tongue in cheek.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I had them order me too.
All right.
That's a groaner. Is what that is.
That is a groaner.
Mm.
Almost as bad as short sleeve shirts.
Mm.
Was it sleeveless?
Mm-hmm.
That shirt's got to be sleeveless.
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 Yes.
Sleeveless.
Less sleeve, not more
That's
sleeve.
safe. So, but bearing arms actually has to do with not your arms.
It's weird because this is like
Guns.
not even a big issue for where we're at. I mean, this is just like the way that North Idahoans believe.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just
Yeah,
common.
This is just
It's
I
the
mean,
way it is.
I've been in Idaho guns 3 times in the last 2 weeks.
have you?
Yeah.
I've
It's
yet to
like-
go in there.
What?
Really?
Oh, man.
You got to check it out.
Check
It's
it
pretty
out.
unique.
It's very unique. You can pick up virtually any rifle in that place you want
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm
and
afraid
point it
of.
at somebody.
That's kind of what I'm afraid
Well,
of.
the first time I went in, I went, this is nuts. All these guns and ammo right here stacked on pallets. It's like, oh, wait
Yeah.
a minute. But they all have trigger locks.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is that I go in there and I'm just going to
Your
spend
wallet's
money.
going to be really lighter when you leave.
Yeah. So I just stay clear because I can't really afford that right now. So
We went over to the 50 cal,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, oh, they've got it locked into place because I couldn't pick it up.
maybe you're just weak.
Yeah, I am weak. But I went, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I know the thing weighs like 30 pounds.
Yeah, it's like an artillery piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
pretty
yeah, you should get in there. It's interesting. It's fun.
Mhm. Yeah.
Little-
Ammo prices are low,
Yeah.
Yeah.
at least as low as Black Sheep.
Yep.
If not $1 less.
Yeah.
Last time I was in there.
Yeah. I got
That's
9 mils for
And the taxidermy
$10.
is just over the
Oh, yeah.
top.
I got some great
You
mounts.
got a lot of it in there, huh?
A lot. More than
Go in
Cabela's.
there.
Cabela's wishes they had as much as Idaho guns.
Wow. That's saying something.
Yeah, a lot of unique and atypical stuff.
And they've got, I think one of the guys said they're going to have ultimately 10,000 guns in there.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
A couple of friends of mine out at the Cape, they're retired and they got hired there. They just want to live. They just love working there, and being there, and the owners are super pro Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. She's an attorney, Second Amendment attorney.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that place is
There's
my favorite.
I have a lot of thoughts about Idaho state sovereignty and militias. Mm-hmm. Because, you have a lot of people that say that they're in militias here, but technically Idaho has a state militia that you are in if you are in a certain age group. You're just considered in the militia. Mm-hmm. And the government, I think the governor has the ability to call up the militia. And, I was thinking about this, it's like, well, how do you militarize your militia in the event that they're required? Like, say, for instance, like, you've gotten beyond your law enforcement, you've gotten beyond the National Guard, you need more people in there with, the ability to be able to do whatever. It's like, well, what if the state was to come in and go to these gun store owners and they were to say, we want to buy this, all of this, and then just start divvying that stuff up to the people that are considered to be in the militia? I mean, if that were the case, Idaho could have a standing army of people in like a week.
Well, we saw that when the BLM showed up in downtown Coeur d'Alene.
I mean, really, we could have a standing army with just what people own.
Yes.
But yeah. I'm just saying, like,
you wouldn't need a lot of extra.
That's true.
Just open
just a lot of reload.
I mean, honestly, I've just been itching for a reason to put on my plate carrier. It's like, so.
Just in case the governor needs me.
Yeah. Just in case the governor needs me to come on down.
Help defend Boise.
Now,
I'm coming.
Now,
I'm a coming.
That is a question. Would we defend Boise, or would we just let them?
Depends
on who was taking them over.
It depends on what was going on, but if Idaho called on me, if it got to the point where they were calling on a 51-year-old dude to come and be a part of the militia, then it's gotten bad.
It's really bad.
So it's probably I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm gonna go. Yep, I would defend our state. I love our state. It's like one of the last bastions of true conservatism.
Who are we defending it from? That would be the question that I'd have to ask. Just like I asked people,
it'd have to be pretty bad.
What would you do if a tank started driving down your driveway? This is for us rural people, and it had UN on the side, and they're there to get your guns.
Did you ever watch Private Ryan?
Yeah.
You load a sock with tannerite, cover it in tar, and then stick that sucker to the side of the track.
Yeah. Kaboom. And tannerite is on sale.
It's on sale at your local farm supply store.
I did notice it was locked up in a case.
Oh, yeah, you bet it was. Yeah. Yeah. They don't want it blowing up in there. That would be a spectacle.
And if any of you are out there going, what is tannerite? It's not a breakfast cereal.
If you don't know, you don't want to know.
Yeah, well,
Well, it's to blow up
Fun.
stumps.
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a farm supply tool to blow up stumps and to clear land.
Yeah, that probably can't get a Tractor Supply, but you can't get it at Idaho.
You can get it at
Tractor Supply.
I don't know if you can get it at Tractor Supply, but I know that you can get it at farm supply stores.
Yeah. Well, they're a farm supply.
You know what else you can get at farm supply stores? Antibiotics.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
My wife and I were just talking about the other day. She goes, if everything comes down, do we have enough antibiotics to, keep ourselves alive? And I went, no, but our neighbors do. So.
Yeah. The thing about antibiotics is that if you get them, like they sell them in the jar, like injection type, then you have to keep them refrigerated. Mm-hmm. So you have to have some way of keeping them cool, whether it's like a root cellar or something, if it's electrical grid down kind of situation,
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the kind of stuff we talk about in North Idaho, folks. All right. So number 6, moving along. We believe that the judicial system in our country should be fair and blind to political parties and agendas. Recent events initiated by the Department of Justice and the court's judges and jurors that were assigned those cases demonstrate a clear double standard that is intrinsically dangerous to our democratic republic. So we support candidates and policies that will hold DOJ leaders responsible and remove the ability for politicians to weaponize the DOJ against their opponents.
And the Supreme Court. And any other government-appointed organization.
I don't support any candidate for presidency that would utilize their office to manipulate the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That's our third branch of government. They need to have zero ability to manipulate that.
Bingo.
Yep. And so, that needs to be completely removed. So the whole thing with like the whole Trump debacle and the cases and the trials, and it's like watching the DOJ get weaponized against their political rivals. Meanwhile, Hillary skates on her laptop, Biden skates on
Hunter's
laptop. It's coming out now that they did funnel money, and there is a clear trail of money. There was just recently this thing where Biden had mistreated top secret documentation, and he did not get treated the same way that Donald Trump got treated. He got treated differently, and the excuse was because of his age. And it's like, what in the world is going on here? There is definitely a two-tier legal system when it comes to political power. And that garbage has got to end. I mean, we got to be done with that because it's just getting ridiculous. Yeah. The DOJ needs to be cleaned up or perhaps even abolished and just sent back to the states and let the states deal with their own justice instead of the federal government trying to issue justice on a federal scale. I don't know how DOJ got it started. Is it because of interstate commerce, or is it because of the legalities of transporting stuff interstate? Or
no clue.
That'd be interesting to find out.
But I did look up something real quick. Donald Trump is 78. Joe Biden's 81.
Yeah,
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years different.
At that age.
It had nothing to do with his age. It
No.
had everything to do with his mental capacity.
Yep.
Obviously, he wasn't mentally capable of standing trial, so why would he be mentally capable of being the president? But they kept him in there, and they kept running the lie and the media, and that's a whole nother thing too, man. It's just the media. What a joke, man. It's ridiculous.
They're running everything.
Yeah. It was so surprising to me. If you would have gone back 6 months, you could not find a news outlet that was favorable to Kamala Harris. That just didn't exist. They despised her. She was a joke, a laughing stock. They won't have anything to do with her. It came out after the debate that Biden just couldn't handle it. So all of a sudden, like overnight, there's this paradigm shift where Kamala is the great savior of the nation.
Yeah.
It's just so amazing, the turn that the media took so quickly, almost as if they're controlled by the same people.
Nah,
that could be true.
Satan?
Could be true. Nah, it can't be true. Satanic
What's
forces,
discouraging to me is that it actually had an effect in the polls. Her polls blipped up. I think they're coming back down to normal again, but it's like, wow, it actually worked.
Nah, I think all that stuff's nonsense. I think the polls are nonsense.
I do too.
They are.
I think that's all manipulation.
I watch this guy every once in a while. It's called The Quartering on YouTube. And he usually does like video game or like movie stuff, but he does talk a lot about political commentary sometimes. And he was looking at this poll that had like Kamala ahead by like 8 points or whatever. And he was like, so I went down to the bottom of the poll and was like, just like, who did they poll? And so it had a percentage. It was like 80-something% Democrat. The rest were Republican and independent.
Yeah.
It's like, well, shocker.
There you go.
if you polled 80% of Democrats and you could only be 8 points ahead,
You're
that's a problem.
You're in trouble.
That's a problem, man. That's scary because that means that you're not doing as well as you think you're doing.
But most people aren't going to go to the bottom and see
No.
who was polled. That's the problem.
That's why it's
The
guys
margin
like
of
that
error.
are important because they'll do that.
Yeah.
They'll go and they'll look and they'll say, hey, look, these polls are nonsense. You just need to know that. But they were saying that kind of stuff when Trump and Hillary were running against each other. Remember when they were saying, like, Trump only has like a 30% chance to win and Hillary's a shoo-in, and the polls were like Hillary was way up, and so everybody was like, oh yeah,
Shocked
Hillary, and then the night came that Trump won, and they were like, what in the world just happened? Didn't we
wrong.
tell you guys how this was supposed to go? You guys didn't get the memo, obviously. So yeah, this election's going to be interesting. And, I hope that we provided a little bit of information for you to be able to at least get a gauge on some of the things that we think about when we're thinking about who we're going to be supporting. I think it's pretty obvious who we'll be supporting as individuals, but, it's really more about issues for us. I don't really think about personalities too much. I just think about who is as closely aligned as I could possibly get to biblical morality. And if you look at it from that lens, there really is only one choice on the table.
Yeah.
So something to consider, something to think about. But I'd also say this, man, just be thinking about, what's going on in November, because it's going to be chaos, whoever wins, I think.
Yeah.
I think if Kamala ends up winning, there's going to be a massive surge of conservative people that are just going to be really angry. The other way around, too. And if we've known anything, it's like if Trump is to win, there is almost a guarantee of violent riots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just going to happen. Like, there's going to be cities burning to the ground.
Yep.
If Kamala wins and the Conservative Party decides to get angry, you're going to see protests. That's what you're going to see. Maybe you see something to the extent of January 6th, but I mean, really, if you kind of look at the footage of everything that happened on January 6th, except for that one tunnel, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Man, it's like, I saw a comedian here recently. It wasn't a comedian, it was Libs of TikTok. And they did this video where they did this stage presentation of a January 6th activity. And then they had a crowd of people. And what they were going to do is they were going to play out the scene. And then they were going to ask the people in the audience how terrified they were. And so they had this scene of this like rotunda. And this guy comes in and he grabs this stand like that you would put a rope on. And he picks it up and he carries it like 12 feet. And then he puts it down. And then the guy looks at the audience. He says, ma'am, how terrified were you when you saw that?
Well,
Because in reality, most of it was that.
Yeah.
It was like they were just people walking around.
Big crowd of people walking through.
Some of them even had police with them walking around. It was bonkers.
Yeah.
So you thank the media for that one too.
Yep.
But it's going to be a nightmare. So yeah, here's my personal opinion. If you are of the opinion that you're going to be traveling within the states after the elections, you should probably wait until stuff cools off. Because, I just don't think it would be wise to travel in the states.
Particularly in the cities that have had trouble in the past.
Yep.
I would
And-
say.
and-
Which is where most of your major airports are at.
Mm-hmm.
As for me and my family,
Well, you guys are going.
we will be traveling internationally right after the election.
Yep.
We think.
But you'll be going to a really great place. You'll be going to Hungary.
Yep.
And Hungary is another one of those nations that's just like been, we don't want to have anything to do with your illegal immigration. We don't want to have anything to do with your wokeness. We don't want to have anything to do with any of that. We're just going to be hungry.
There
If
is
you don't like that, oh well.
a little bit of a side note there in that the prime minister there is, what's the word? Cahoots, maybe, with Putin. They've talked, they've met. That's a little scary, but other than that, yeah, it's a pretty safe place.
I have controversial opinions over Russia and Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I have from the very beginning. I think that Putin did a lot to try and tell people what was and was not acceptable. He told them over and over again, he's like, we'll leave Ukraine alone so long as you don't try to get them into NATO. And all of those nations along that Russian border, that was kind of the thing. It's like, we don't want them to be part of NATO because that would then make them our enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And we want neutral countries between us and NATO countries. That's perfectly reasonable, I think, as a leader.
But you can't.
That was not
demand
honored.
that. Yeah, you can't demand that. You can ask that.
No, it was a treaty. That was the treaty that was signed, and it was violated. And so
Putin signed a treaty with NATO.
It was the agreement. Yeah, that they were not going to
with Ukraine, right?
I'm not sure that it was. Well, maybe it was Ukraine, but there's definitely countries to the north of that for sure. And NATO has been trying to get them in. We have CIA bases or stations in Ukraine. You know, it's like you can't poke the bear and then get mad when he growls. You know, it's like that's not a thing. Like, so there's plenty of blame. What I'm saying is there's plenty of blame to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Ukraine and the United States are not innocent in this thing. Like, there's been plenty of blame to go around in that whole entire thing. And, you know, you might say that, well, Russia is like, you know, vicious and they're terrible and they're, you know, maybe killing innocent people. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Have you watched any of the video of the Ukrainian drones dropping grenades on Russians trying to surrender?
No one is
Maybe
innocent.
you should see that.
No one's innocent.
Yeah, it's like trying to frame, you know, one of these countries against the other one as some kind of saint is just nonsensical, because they're just both they're just countries doing what countries do. They bicker over borders.
Yeah, fight for their own sovereignty.
Exactly. So, yeah, I've always had kind of controversial kind of opinions about the whole Russia-Ukraine war. I think Zelensky is a con artist. I think that he is in bed with American interests. And I think a lot of that money that is going over to Ukraine is being laundered back into the pockets of American politicians. I don't know that I could prove that, but I think that that's what's happening. Because, my gosh, how many billions of dollars have been funneled into Ukraine? They should have been able to conquer Russia by now.
Destroy
Really?
the whole country by now.
So,
I don't know. That's an interesting take on it. I don't particularly feel that way, but again, I'm not aligned with anything that would make me think different than what you're saying.
I'll tell you this. If Trump were to take office and he were to step into that and he were to say, look, I'm going to tell NATO that if they want our support, we will not put any NATO countries along your border. If he were to go in and say that, that war would be over tomorrow. Russia would pull out. They wouldn't want to have anything to do with Ukraine. You know, people are saying that Russia wants to go in there and take it over because Ukraine is the breadbasket of the
Oil.
Of all that, because they have the most farmland of any like Eastern European country. It's like, no, that it's not about that. Russia doesn't have any problems feeding its people. I mean, Tucker Carlson, for heaven's sake, went into a Russian grocery store. He got anything that he wanted. I mean, they're not struggling to feed their people. It's not about food. It's not about farmland. It's about principles, and it's about borders, and it's about, you know, sovereignty. And, you know, Putin, you know, he's just kind of like Trump and all the rest of them. You know, I mean, they're just like,
This is ours. I want it back.
yeah, they're dudes, and they put their country first. That's what they do. You know, I think that there is a way to stop that, but, you know, it's gotta end with, you know, the United States putting its foot down and saying, nah, we're not involved in this anymore. It's like, let's just leave them alone. Just leave them alone. They'll be fine. Nobody will mess with them. We could have a peace over there. If people, the whole 4 years that Trump was in office, peace, no war. We weren't involved in any wars when Trump was in office. That's
a good reason.
Yeah. That is not the record of a warmongering Nazi. That's the record of a person that just wants peace so we could be economically stable. Smart. So just stuff to consider. It's a mess. And, even with, Israel and Gaza, it's like, God, what a nightmare. All that is. It's been a nightmare over there for a long time, but now you even have, conservative pundits over here coming down on Israel because of all the, innocent people that have been killed in the bombing of Gaza. Candace Owens is one of them. I've lost a lot of respect for Candace Owens. She's really come down on Israel for being murderers, and how can you call yourself followers of God if you are killing all these innocent people by bombing Gaza, women and children, all this kind of stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, Candace, you should probably read the Old Testament, because I'm pretty sure that God told them to go in and wipe the Philistines out to a person.
Mm-hmm.
So reconcile that with your peace initiative. It's like sometimes there are groups of people that are so nefarious that the only answer is to just be done with it.
Yep. We don't know how many civilizations have been wiped out by God's authority that are not mentioned in the Bible, that are not mentioned in history, but they were told to do that.
Imagine what the world would be like right now. How different the world would be had Israel obeyed God the first time.
That's right.
People are like, we want peace in the Middle East. It's like, well, it's possibility that God was trying to give it to you and you refused it because you didn't want to do what he told you to do for whatever reason. Now, I think their reason was financial. I think that they got some benefits out of it. Maybe they didn't want to do it because they felt that it was, a moral wrong to do. God doesn't do anything morally wrong, and he doesn't have to apologize for anything that he's said. So, it's like if he tells, the people of Israel, I want you to go into this country and I want you to wipe out every man, woman, and child. It's like, well, how do you reconcile that with, not murdering people, or like even with abortion or whatever? It's like, it's a different scenario.
God said it.
It's not murder at that point. That it becomes warfare, and then that's a different issue altogether. Obviously, or God would have treated it the same.
It's obedience to
And
God.
I always wonder, what would Israel look like today had they just obeyed God that one time?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would be different? Would the Palestinians even exist?
They shouldn't.
For that matter.
They shouldn't.
That's, it's just an interesting thought exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you might say, well, man, that sounds like you're for just wiping out a whole group of people. Well, no, but I am for Israel defending itself. And, I'm sorry that war kills innocent people. That's what war does. So if you didn't want war and you didn't want innocent people to die, maybe you shouldn't have flown over and murdered and raped innocent people to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should just left people alone. And then it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. Israel did not start it.
Yeah. Israel would have just let you be. Do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, they're locked in and Israel won't let them do anything. And it's like all this kind of stuff. No, Israel was letting them pass back and forth into Israel to work and to socialize and to do
businesses in downtown Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, come on, people.
Now, if you look just directly south of them, there is a country there that was not allowing them to come back and forth and is still closed off to them. Mm-hmm. A Muslim country that should be helping them, but they're not. Because why?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just some, there's just a lot going on, a lot to consider, lots of things to mull over. And I don't think that I would just take anybody's word for it. It's like it's easy to listen to a person and just say, oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, I used to listen to Candace Owens all the time, and I like a lot of her viewpoints. But when it comes to Israel and Palestine, yeah, I couldn't disagree with her more. And that's sad, but it is what it is, right? Yeah. I don't have to hate her or dislike her because of that. It's just I don't agree with her. And so, yeah, you're going to find that a lot probably.
Yep.
Just be able to deal with that. So,
and there may be people listening to this podcast today who disagree with some of our viewpoints. If you'd like to come on the program and discuss, debate civilly, we'd love to have you on here. We'd like to hear your viewpoint and consider all alternatives and let the listener make up their own mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'd love that.
That is open to you. Just send
yeah, and
email.
we promise it won't be a beat up session.
No.
Right? No, we definitely want to have discussions with people that want to have civil discussion.
This isn't an echo chamber.
Yep. Obviously. We've got
sometimes it's noisy, sometimes it's hot, but it doesn't echo.
Yeah, it is not. Yeah, we often disagree, especially when Richard's here.
He makes it fun.
Ken, do you have any final words for us?
I would just say, we've hit on these issues. We hit on some big issues. We've hit on them fast and short and all that. They are very complex issues. They are nuanced. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances in all of the arguments. And so we're not trying to oversimplify these things and just whitewash them all and, tell you how to vote. Do your own research, know and be well-informed and convinced of your opinion when you vote. Vote with confidence. Do your homework on the local issues, because a lot of times the local issues are going to affect you much more than what happens in the White House. So don't go to the poll and not know what the other issues and the other candidates are about. Find out about that. And then I just wanted to read Romans 13, 1 and 2. We've read this several times, but it still applies. Let every person be subjected to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. So there will be no surprises for God come election time, and he's going to use whoever is in that office and whatever happens to bring about his plan on the earth and his will for mankind. And so be confident in that. We may not agree with what goes on in Washington, D.C. or why or how they do it, but God does. He knows what's going on, and just get behind his plan.
Amen. 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 Greg?
I would say, just echoing what.
Oh boy!
Echo.
Sorry, I had to do that. Echoing what Ken said. Some good information here. We will be putting this out, publishing it. For our congregation at minimum. But beyond that, vote. Get out and do that. It's alarming, the number of Christians that are not even registered to vote, and even more alarming those that are registered that don't vote. We need to get out as a voice and vote for issues and candidates that we believe in.
Yeah.
And with that said, read your Bible. Know what is going on with your God and how he can affect your heart through his word, and utilize that as you endeavor to do the things that he wants you to do, including voting, including holding our politicians and leaders, administrators within the government, holding their feet to the fire.
Amen.
Making sure that they come through with their promises, and unfortunately, guys, that's not an easy job. It's tough. Just like when we say do your own research, the majority of you aren't going to do that. You're going to rely on somebody else to do that for you. And if that's the case, at least do your research on the people that are doing the homework for you.
Yeah.
Make sure that they are valid and share the same ideals that you do.
Amen. Amen. Those good words. Yeah, good words. Well, that does it for us today. As always, thank you for joining us. If you have a comment or a question or an idea for an episode, send it to us at 3p@ethelbaptistchurch.org. If your idea gets used on the show, you could be the proud recipient of the now world-famous 3P coffee mug.
I have one of those. I have one.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I know that you're thrilled. You should be. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks to Ethel Baptist Church and its members for their generous support of this ministry. And again, thank you for listening. And until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do the same. And with that, we are out.